Hello and welcome to the Monroe Method Clancast. I am Jason Monroe and this is episode 82 today. So I asked for a couple of suggestions from people who are in my, let me get my phone, who are in my very inactive, what do you call it? The thing on Instagram? What do you call them? Broadcast channels, right? Oh, there's a third one in there. So I asked for a couple of suggestions for podcast episodes. I was overwhelmed with the response from two people. There are only 132 people in there. I don't get the whole broadcast channel thing. I've not sussed it out yet and how to get the most use out of it. But anyway, I asked for a couple of suggestions. This was one of them: gut health, and I suppose it's a good one to dive into. Unlike most episodes, I've actually got some notes here. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you will see me referring to the notes that I typed up for this. Gut health is a bit of a faddy thing at the moment, and that annoys me because there are many. It's like people take real science and then they turn it into a faddy thing, like the Zoe diet, for example, taking blood sugar and turning it into a fad diet, giving everybody blood glucose monitors and telling them that they're getting personalized nutrition and all this shit. Like, people take these things that have a real basis in science, that are genuinely beneficial, that could have a massive impact, and then they just turn it into nonsense. So I guess before I even get into this, the really important point to get across here when it comes to gut health is that it is very much in its infancy, right? Gut health research is still a new and emerging area. There is, like the world's oceans, there is a lot that we don't know about the gut. Yes, we are making significant advances. When I was training as a nutritionist in 2018, I went to quite a few conferences. So where I did my qualification, the Mac Nutrition Uni, they put on regular conferences. And they usually tied in with something to do with the course, right? So you would go to a conference, but it would also be someone's graduation that night. But anyway, one that we went to, one of the speakers, maybe this was in 2019, one of the speakers was Dr. Megan Rossi. Now, Dr. Megan Rossi is an Australian, I want to say Australian, I think she is, an Australian doctor who lives in London, works in London, has a clinic there. If you find her on Instagram, she's at the Gut Health Doctor, and she's one of the leading researchers in this field. She came and delivered a fantastic presentation. That was back in 2019, and she's saying very similar. She said very similar to what I'm saying now, that gut health is very much still in its infancy. And even though we're making significant advances, because people are finally starting to realize just how powerful the gut is, because the field, just because it's in its infancy, just because we're making advances, it's like you learn something new, but then you have to learn a lot about that new thing. So we're making advances and we're learning more, but we still don't understand what we're learning. So, this is going to be something that people are going to be investigating and studying and researching for decades to come. And new things are going to come out all the time. But the problem with new things is that new things have to be tested. They have to be researched properly. They have to be studied. So when you see idiots on social media who are going to repair your gut, rebalance your hormones, fix all this and fix that, and just, go buy my juice diet book, go buy this snake oil. We don't know enough about the gut for people to be giving you such specific and tailored advice. Not yet. Yes, there are absolutely plenty of general guidelines, and I'm going to go through some of them today. But in terms of going to the level that some of these people do on social media, best avoided. Misinformation around the gut is ridiculous. And this is what I mean about new, right? So let's say some brand new study comes out about, I wish I had searched for an example, but let's say some brand new study comes out about gut health. Someone will pounce on that because this is what these people do. And it's not just limited to gut health, it's across the board. A brand new study will come out, and someone who is a bit of an extremist, so maybe somebody, if we bring it back to blood sugar, like someone like the glucose goddess, whose entire brand and personality is based around blood sugar, a new study will come out that hasn't been tried, that hasn't been tested, that hasn't been peer reviewed, and people like her will jump on it and say, do you know they did this study and these people did this and this happened. If you think back to when you were in school, in high school, and you went to science class, chemistry or biology or whatever, chemistry is probably a better one. When you were in chemistry, you were taught that when you do an experiment, you don't just do it once and take that as the definite result. You do the experiment 10, 15, 20 times, and you write down your 10, 15, 20 results, and you look for a correlation between, how many times did I get that result? Did I get the same result every single time? Well, yes, then there's a strong case to say that this equals that. But when it comes to research like this, these people are just cherry picking from individual studies and saying, right, this thing happened to this group of people in this one study, in this one instance, and I'm going to regurgitate that as absolute fact. And that's where we're at with gut health. People are rife on social media spreading misinformation and selling you completely unproven products, often marked as like miracle cures for things that are themselves unproven, that we don't even know if they exist yet. So when it comes to gut health, be very skeptical. Don't be very skeptical about what I'm going to tell you, because everything I'm going to tell you has a basis in evidence, has a basis in science, and I'm not going to try and sell you anything at the end of the episode. So what is gut health? Gut health refers to the overall well-being of your gastrointestinal tract, right? The balance and the function of the microorganisms living in it. So your gut, we call it your microbiome, right? Your gut microbiome consists of trillions of microorganisms, including some horrible things that you won't like the sound of, but these are essential. So it includes bacteria, it includes viruses, it includes fungi, and all of these live inside your digestive tract. Now, I know that sounds horrendous, but it's really important to understand that there are good viruses, there are good bacteria, there are good fungi. And then obviously there are bad ones, right? But these are the good ones. These microbes, they play a crucial role in digesting our food, producing essential vitamins like B12 and K, and protecting against harmful pathogens. Now, the importance of a healthy gut contributes to, obviously, better digestion, better nutrient absorption, meaning you're better equipped to absorb nutrients from the food that you eat when you have the right level of gut health there to deal with it, right? It supports your immune function, and this is where the stuff's really emerging, where there's a direct link between mental health through something called the gut-brain axis. So this was something that actually the gut health doctor, Megan Rossi, spoke about when we were down at that conference. I'm going to tell you something disgusting as well, because this was disgusting but fascinating, where they're doing a lot of research between, or they were back then, like it's probably advanced massively over the last 5 years, I would assume. But back then, they were doing a lot of research on the connection between, her talk was all about it was like happy mind, happy gut, healthy mind, healthy gut, something like that. So there's a direct link between your gut health and your mental health. So there are these things that they do at clinics in London, and they are called fecal transplants. So fecal, we're talking about feces, shit, a more common term, but people were doing fecal transplants. Now, they've done studies where they have taken, and they've done it, I don't know if they've done it in humans. I know they've done it in, have they done it in humans? I don't know. But they've done studies, and they have taken feces from someone who has depression, from someone who has poor mental health, and they have transplanted that into the gut of another human, another person. I'm sure they've done this in humans. I'm gonna check this now. In fact, I'm gonna pause this while I double check, because I don't want to be talking shit. No pun intended. I don't need to check it. I'm right, because you can go to clinics in London and you can actually pay to have this done. So what they do is they take feces from someone who has an extremely healthy gut, and they'll transplant it into another person to try and promote a healthy gut in that person, right? So they've done studies where they have found people with poor mental health that have been diagnosed with depression and whatever else, and they've taken feces from them, transplanted them into another person, and that person went on to develop the same conditions that came from that person. And this is part of the way that they've been kind of discovering the link between our guts and our minds and our mental health. So that's, again, a very new and emerging area. So yeah, your gut contributes to digestion and nutrient absorption, immune function, and the influences on our mental health. Now, more tangible, so it's one thing to say that it helps your mental health or helps digestion, but to make it more tangible, better to understand, like, what's the direct impact? If you have a balanced gut microbiome, it aids in breaking down the food that you're consuming more effectively, which can help prevent issues like constipation and diarrhea. When we're talking about absorption, we want to have it's all good and well eating fruits and vegetables and everything, but if you doing those things plays a part in having a healthy gut. But I'm going to talk about the next thing first. There are many things that we can do that reduce our body's ability to do those things. So it's all good and well eating fruits and vegetables, but you also have to be in a position to be able to extract the nutrients from those fruits and vegetables through digestion, and you need to have a healthy gut microbiome in order to be able to do that. Immune system. A healthy gut helps protect against infections by supporting the immune system and preventing harmful bacteria from spreading. And then, like I said, mental health, the gut-brain axis, the connection between gut health and mental well-being. Gut bacteria can help with the uptake of serotonin, which can influence mood, can influence stress levels. So it's funny, like there's a thing that I used to say, and it's like eat how you want to feel. Now I've been saying this since before I knew anything about gut health, but I was also saying it back at a time when I used to use derogatory terms to describe the food that we eat. So if you've been listening to this for any length of time, you'll know that we don't talk about good food, bad food, healthy foods, unhealthy foods. But back then I used to say a thing that was eat how you want to feel. And it basically meant, if you want to feel like shit, if you want to feel like crap, eat like crap. If you want to feel great, eat great. If you have a highly processed diet, if you have a diet that doesn't have any fruits and vegetables in it, if you have a diet that consists of lots of snacky type foods and no protein and hardly any fruits and vegetables, that if you eat in that way, you will feel that way, right? If you have a poor diet, you will feel poor. That's not a good word. If you have a low quality diet, you will live a low quality life. That's not good either. But you get the idea, right, that I'm trying to get across. And it's weird how that then translates into like our gut health. Like basically eat how you want to feel. Do you want to feel energized? Do you want to feel healthy? Do you want to feel great? In that case, eat in a way that helps you feel like that. Eat in a way that promotes that rather than the other direction. So, like I said, before we get on to the stuff, now, I think the question from Kim was, it was like, gut health, is it a thing? What do I need to do? Where do I start? Like something like that. I'm going to check it. Channel. Gut health. Is it a thing? Where to start, if so? So here's where to start. Now, I'm not going to tell you to start doing things, okay? I'm going to be talking about this a lot. I take a lot of notes on my phone. Like I have lots of thoughts throughout the day when I'm on dog walks in the morning, when I'm standing in the shower. I jot down a lot of thoughts, and a lot of my thoughts recently have been around not jumping the gun, not jumping straight in to do things, not looking for new things. So, for example, like the person who asked this probably has a million things to be working on before they even start thinking about trying to improve their gut health, right? There are things that we do every day that are ruining our health, that we should be focusing on instead before we start looking for anything new, before we start introducing anything new. And it's the same with gut health. Like, what do I need to do? Well, it's not really what you need to do. It's what you need to stop doing. It's what you need to do less of. So let's go right in with the first one. I kind of feel that, with me being sober, that it comes up in most episodes, but I said this to someone in the group. I wrote a big post about alcohol. I actually think it might be going out next week, but I've written a big daily post about alcohol and how I feel that it helps me, my sobriety helps me be a better coach, because I'm no longer trying to shy away from the truth about alcohol to protect my own thoughts about alcohol. Like, because I don't drink anymore, I can be open and honest about it. So I think that's one of the reasons that I talk about it so much, because it's one of the biggest negative impactors on most people's life, on most people's health. But when I was writing this, when I was researching it, alcohol was one of the first things that came up. So excessive alcohol consumption, if someone's having a cup, 2-3 glasses of wine per week, like with a meal, just one individual glass of an evening, that's not really doing anything, right? That's not having a negative impact. Excessive consumption would be like binge drinking every weekend. If you have 1 or even 2 nights every week where your intention is to get drunk, then you are drinking excessively. This can massively disrupt the balance of your gut bacteria. It reduces the beneficial bacteria, promotes the growth of harmful ones, and it can also damage your gut lining. Alcohol can damage it's a horrible word, but the mucosal lining of the gut, which leads to things like inflammation, increased intestinal permeability, which is also known as leaky gut, which is not quite a thing, but it's a term that people use to describe things that they experience, like some abdominal pain. It can develop food sensitivities, bloating, indigestion. So yeah, if we're going to talk about what can I do to start improving my gut health, we're not looking at doing anything new. We're looking at what can we reduce, what can we consider. And if you're someone who regularly gets drunk, who counts down the days until you can smash that bottle of wine on the weekend or have a few vodkas, this is the kind of thing that's kind of ruining your gut health. Caffeine is another thing. Interestingly, well, moderate caffeine consumption is generally considered safe. Excessive consumption is not. So, like, if you're someone that's having 3, 4, 5 coffees in a day, if you're someone who drinks a lot of energy drinks is a bit of a double-edged sword, because if you drink sugar-free energy drinks, then those are full of artificial sweeteners and caffeine. Now, again, if you've listened to these for any length of time, I do not scaremonger about these things. I don't give anyone a hard time around caffeine or artificial sweeteners. I drink artificial sweeteners every single day. It's not that they are inherently bad, but for people who are conscious of developing a healthier gut microbiome, these are the kind of things that you need to be conscious of, right? Certain artificial sweeteners like aspartame, sucralose, they have been shown to negatively affect gut bacteria. Now, the thing is, you need to think of this in the sense that you listening to this right now might have a beautifully balanced diet, but you might drink a lot of Diet Coke, right? And that's not a bad thing, because that might be the only place that your artificial sweeteners come from. Also, there will be people listening to this who drink energy drinks every day, who drink sugar-free fizzy drinks, who put sweeteners in their tea and coffee, who put sweeteners over their cereal, who eat a lot of processed foods, who may have a highly processed diet, in which case, their artificial sweetener consumption might be through the roof. So it's not about removing these things from your diet for the rest of your life. These things are allowed to be in food because they're perfectly safe. This is really just about the little things you can start looking at to make changes to improve things. We're not trying to turn it into superhumans. We're just trying to be a little bit better. So if your gut health is something that you want to be conscious of, do you know, can I tell this story? I think I can. She won't listen to this. In fact, it doesn't matter. I can be very vague about it. But when I was in Newcastle at the weekend, I just took a drink and it went down the wrong way. I was at Newcastle the weekend, last weekend, 2 weekends ago, for a joint 40th birthday party. And someone was there who suffers with hip pain. I was talking to his wife, and he came looking for painkillers. I gave him some ibuprofen, and his wife started talking about, I asked some questions like, oh, does he not get anything from the doctors? Does he not got like naproxen? Naproxen are like better anti-inflammatories. He would only need to take one in the morning, maybe one in the afternoon. And she said, oh, no, they're really bad for your gut health. Now, isn't it funny, like, the things that we latch onto, because we'll hear one thing and we'll be like, oh, I can't do that thing. And the person in question, I'm 38 years old. I have been around alcohol and clubbing and festivals and all that for a very long time, going out, staying out all night, going to after parties. I have never known a person who can drink as much as this other person can in one sitting or in one long sitting. And it's one of those ones where it's like, honestly, do you really think that a couple of ibuprofen is going to have a negative effect on someone who can easily sink 3 and 4 bottles of Buckfast in a single night? No problem. But it's just funny, like, that we hear these little things, and it's like, and it's kind of what I'm trying to explain. Like, before we even start looking at the things that we should be doing more of, we need to look at this. I spoke about this on social media a long time ago, where I said that there is very little that you can do to make yourself feel better with food. Meaning, let's imagine someone has already got a balanced diet. And we're not talking about eating healthy. We're not talking about anything like that, because most people eat terribly. But let's say someone has a well-balanced diet and that's it. There's nothing else that you can do. What does a person who has a well-balanced diet do to make themselves feel better with foods? Like, what's the next level? How do you become healthier? What else can you do? You can't eat more vegetables and you'll feel even better. Like, nobody has ever eaten a fucking banana and went, oh my God, I feel incredible after that. Like Banana Man. If you're old enough to remember Banana Man. No, it doesn't work like that. But at the opposite end of the scale, we can make ourselves feel like absolute shit with food. So it's almost like, it's very similar to the weight loss, weight gain thing. Like, there's no limit to how quickly you can gain weight because there's no limit to how many calories you can consume, right? You could consume 10,000 calories in a day if you wanted. But if you're only burning 2,000 calories, you can only consume 2,000 less. That's why weight loss will always be slower than weight gain. And when it comes to trying to make ourselves feel better with food, with a better diet, if once you achieve a balanced diet, you can't achieve, there's not another level. There's no more levels after that. You can't, it's not a case of, well, if I eat even healthier, I'll feel even better. I can't put a number on it because it's not definitive, but you might find that extra 1%, oh, well, if I stop eating that, if I cut that out my diet entirely, I might get that extra 1%. Or if I stop drinking alcohol for the rest of my life, I might get that extra percent. But if someone has a well-balanced diet, there is very little room to go up the way, but there is plenty of room to go down the way. If you have a balanced diet, you could maybe make yourself feel 2 to 3% better if you make a few more changes, but you can make yourself feel 100% worse by stopping doing everything that you're doing and just going in the complete opposite direction, eating lots of processed foods, drinking lots of alcohol, not getting any sleep, not hydrating, drinking a lot of caffeine, drinking a lot of artificial sweeteners. It's not that these things alone are inherently bad, but when you remove a balanced diet from the equation and you have all these other things going on, you can make yourself feel incredibly worse. And this is why it's important, coming back to the gut health thing, to know that it's not about, first of all, doing things, because doing things doesn't do very much. We need to address the stuff that's reducing things in the first place, and that's where alcohol comes into it and these other things. So anyway, once you've addressed the alcohol in your diet, once you think you're consuming an average level of caffeine, once you think your artificial sweetener consumption is no longer excessive, and these things are down at a more reasonable level, then you can start looking at building a healthy gut microbiome, because another thing to be conscious of, something that will, or should we do that at the end? Let's do that at the end. How do we build a healthy gut? The first and foremost, plants. This has been the story of my life since 2017, encouraging people to eat more plants. Now, why do I say it like that? Because nobody likes to be told to eat more fruits and vegetables. It's been drummed into you since you were in primary school, drummed into you since you were a child. You need to eat this, you need to eat that. I didn't like getting told it as a child. Most of the adults I work with don't like getting told it either, because it's not new information. People want new information. They don't want to be told the same thing. They want to hear it. Fruits and you're just going to tell me to eat fruits and vegetables. So that's what I've been getting told my whole life. And it's like, yeah, but you're not doing it. My job isn't to get you to eat more fruits and vegetables. It's to get you to a place where you see the importance in eating more fruits and vegetables and you want to do it. But diversity in the diet, first and foremost, right? Consuming a wide range of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains, etc., promoting a diet that helps promote a diverse and healthy microbiome. Different plant foods, by plant foods we mean different vegetables, different fruits, etc. They contain various types of fibers and various type of nutrients that feed different beneficial bacteria in your gut. So there are lots of different types of gut, lots of different species is a word I want to use, and we want, off the top of my head, I think there is only one that I know off the top of my head, Lactobacilli. Anyway, there's lots of different kinds, and also it's not just. I need to Google this now. Okay. PubMed. Yeah, so there's many different species, but for each species there are many different types of bacteria underneath the name. Let's not go into them because it's boring and you don't need to know, and you don't want to hear me try to pronounce these. There it's there, Lactobacilliales. Like I said, I'm not a gut health expert, and most of the people on social media who think they aren't either. But essentially, like we're consuming a varied diet because we want to develop all these different types of bacteria. So yeah, fiber, various plant sources, and then a fiber-rich diet, right? Fiber is a key component for gut health. Now, I can tell you these stats off the top of my head because I've been reciting them to my clients for 8, 6, 7 years now. A healthy range of fiber in the diet is 30 to 50 grams a day. Most of the people I work with, the vast majority of the people I work with, are consuming anything between. In fact, should I tell you that first? No, I won't. I'll tell you this first. So 30 to 50 grams a day is considered a healthy range in adults. In 2 to 5 year old children, 15 grams plus per day is considered a healthy level of fiber. 2 to 5 year old children. The average fiber intake in adults in the UK, in women, it is 14 grams a day. In men, it is 16 grams a day. On average, between them, it is 15 grams a day. Most adults in the UK are consuming the levels required for 2 to 5 year old children, just to give that some context. All right. Most of the people that I work with, their fiber consumption. So, like, the way things work, when people come in to work with me, we don't jump straight into calories and losing weight. There's a kind of process where we spend 5, 6, 7 days learning and developing and building knowledge, getting up to speed with what's going to be required and what they need to know before we get to that stuff. When we get to days 5 and 6, I get them to track their diet for 2 days. Now, I ask them not to make any adjustments. I ask them not to do anything differently. I ask them to try and make it 2 typical days, but they know I'm going to be looking at it, and I know they make changes to it. But even though some of them are conscious that someone's going to be looking at it, and they do try to eat a little bit better, in whatever the context of the word is to them, I also find lots of holes in their diet. And that's what it's all about, right? So they come and they do a check-in. They bring these 2 screenshots so that I can look at what their current diet looks like. And if there is anything that leaps off the page at me, I can say, well, do you know what? Your diet looks great. You're consuming enough protein. It looks relatively well balanced. But here's this thing. You're only having 5 grams of fiber a day. That could be 2 slices of bread. That could be some pasta with your dinner. You're eating no fruits. You're eating no vegetables. You're eating no plants. That's a big problem. So, and you can then say with this, and that's great. That's a good problem to have because it shows us a huge area of your diet that's been missing for a long time. This is going to be this, there's a wonderful book. I've probably mentioned this a few times now by Ryan Holiday. Ryan Holiday. And it's called The Obstacle is the Way. And it basically means like, the thing that you find most challenging is your pathway to success, right? If someone struggles with their weight, struggles with their health, nutrition related health, and all those things, and they come to me and they say, I do not eat any fruits and vegetables, and great. You don't do that because it's something you don't want to do. And there's a reason for it. Maybe it comes from childhood. Maybe you're a fussy eater. Maybe you just don't see the value in it yet. And you can tell that person this is going to be, and people are always looking for shortcuts, for hacks, for tips, and all those things. Don't look for that. Look for your biggest bang for buck move. What is the single change that I could make that's going to bring the biggest result? And if someone goes from not eating any fruits and vegetables to including them in most of their main meals or having them as snacks in between as well, that would be massively transformational for a number of reasons that we won't go into today. But yeah, just to kind of get that point across, like most adults in the UK do not consume anywhere near enough plants. And that's where things like the Zoe diet step in to basically take information that's already available on the NHS that says we need to eat more plants, we need to be having our 5 a day or whatever it's up to now, but we're going to charge you hundreds of pounds to tell you that and give you a blood sugar monitor, and you're going to send us a shit sample, so it feels like it's something different when it's not. So fiber is a key component for gut health, helps maintain regular bowel movements, provides fuel for our beneficial bacteria, that healthy bacteria again, and then it can do other just as important things like reduce the risk of developing diseases like colorectal cancer. Fermented foods. Now, there's a big thing about fermented foods. You may have heard of things like kefir, which is a dairy product. So like yogurt, kefir. Then there's things like sauerkraut, kimchi, and miso, which contain live beneficial bacteria, also known as probiotics. You'll also see things like, if you go into Aldi, I'm going to Google this. Aldi do their own version of like Actimels, and it will say on the outside of it, so this one, Actimel, vitamins D and B6, and it contains 10 billion of something cultures. Another one of these names. L-Casey cultures. These contain live cultures which help promote. So that one in particular contains 3 strains of live cultures, and this is partly, I mean, it's a bit gimmicky, because it's almost like putting protein on the front of packets to sell protein, but Actimel have been doing this for a long time, since before gut health was cool. It's not like they're trying to mislead people. Things like this can play a part. Having one of these per day would be better than not having it in most instances, right? Not that I'm telling you all to go rushing out and buy Actimel, but it's one of those things where you could start your day with it, or build it in as a snack somewhere. It could be something extra that you do on top of everything else once you've addressed all the other stuff, and we're starting looking for those little ways to improve stuff. That's probiotics that we're talking about, right? And those can help balance our microbiome. Other things that you can do, prebiotics. So foods that are rich in prebiotics, like garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, bananas, whole grains, these provide food for beneficial bacteria, which helps them thrive and maintain a healthy balance in the gut. Another one is often overlooked, hydration. Statistically, I can say this because this is what the data shows us. Statistically, most adults in the UK are dehydrated every day. It's something like 52 or 53 or 54%. It just swings enough that you can say most people with confidence. It's almost 50-50, but it is definitely most people. So most adults in the UK are dehydrated on a daily basis, even if it's just mild dehydration, because they do not drink enough. Drinking plenty of water is essential for overall health. It's essential for dehydration, and it's essential for the absorption of nutrients as well. If I could give you one little tip here, like most people will wake up in the morning dehydrated because, you'll know yourself. Do you go to the toilet in the morning and your shit, your piss, your pee is like cola? Is it dark brown? Is it orange? Is it some kind of dark shade? If so, you're waking up dehydrated, which makes sense, right? If your last drink was at 7 or 8 o'clock the night before, you're waking up at 6, 7 a.m., potentially 12 hours of not taking on any fluids. Granted, you're not doing much while sleeping, but your body still goes through fluids overnight. So if you wake up and your wee's dark in the morning, you're dehydrated, and you need to do something about that. And drinking a cup of coffee, well, yes, it's hydrating, especially if you have milk in your coffee, or if you have a cup of tea in the morning, it's hydrating, but it's not a massive amount of fluids. So if I could give you one tip, and it's such an easy thing to implement, is this is what I do. So I wake up in the morning, come downstairs, switch on the kettle. While you're waiting on the kettle to boil, grab a glass, put it under the cold tap, drink 2 glasses of water. Now, if you don't like drinking tap water, then that's fine. Go about it your own way. If that disgusts you, or if you live in an area, sorry, I should also be conscious of that. If you live in an area where your tap water is not drinkable, bottled water in the fridge, whatever the case is, drink 2 glasses of water, then have your hot drink, whatever that may be. Now you're hydrated, right? You've taken on 2 glasses of water. You're resolving that overnight dehydration. You're then having your hot drink, which also hydrates you. And now you're starting the day hydrated. Because what most people do is they'll wake up in the morning dehydrated. They'll drink one hot drink, and then they won't drink anything else until like mid-morning. They'll have like a can of juice at their desk. And then at lunchtime, they'll have something. And all of that time, they're living in dehydration. They very rarely break out of dehydration to the point where they're hydrated. Exercise, regular exercise, can positively influence our gut health. Stress management, this is mega. Chronic stress, there are big ties between stress and our gut health. I don't understand how it works. You don't need to understand how it works. You just need to know that chronic stress can negatively impact your gut health by altering the composition of your microbiome. So basically, it can throw it out of balance. So it's really important to have good stress relief techniques. That could be going for walks, getting fresh air, reading, mindfulness, meditation, or even doing things like yoga or stretching exercises, Pilates, things like that. And sleep, of course, important as well. Oh, I did note this one at the end. Okay, so this was the thing I was going to jump on earlier, but let's do this at the end. Antibiotics. If you have ever been put on a course of antibiotics, now, the thing about antibiotics is their job is to wipe out bacteria in the body. And the thing is, antibiotics don't know the difference between good bacteria and bad bacteria. Antibiotics just go in and wipe everything out. So you could have the best diet in the world. You could do all this work on your gut health, but if you go to the doctor with an abscess in your tooth or a chest infection or something else that, that requires antibiotics, you have to do it because you need to get rid of the thing, but you also have to understand that it's going to wipe out your gut health. And it's the thing is, like, if you are if like one, you know how sometimes like one course is the word I was looking for. One course of antibiotics doesn't quite do the trick. Maybe you have to go back for a second. Sometimes you go back for a third. That prolonged antibiotic use is not great. My advice then, because the thing is, if you're someone that something I see quite a lot is because of the kind of balance of nutrition that we encourage inside the Monroe method, what can happen quite a lot is someone will go on a course of antibiotics. They'll come back to me and say, "Oh, I've been ill. I've been on antibiotics, but I'm okay now. But I'm so bloated and I'm constipated and whatever else." And it's because they've gone straight back to eating how they were eating before. But having that well-balanced diet without the gut health to back it up, because it takes time to develop that. You could not just go out and become a vegan overnight and start smashing vegetables constantly. It would lead to a lot of discomfort because your body's not had the time to get your gut microbiome up to a level to cope with that. So if you go through a course of antibiotics, it's really important to know that it's going to take time for that healthy gut to build back up again. So you might not want to overload it too much. Just take your time. Don't go bananas with the vegetables with your meals. Don't go bananas with the fruit, because oftentimes people like to, they're very conscious that I am ill. I need lots of healthy foods. I'm going to go make this superfood smoothie and this and that. But they're also on antibiotics at the time. And it can create a bit of gas, a bit of discomfort. It doesn't last forever. But yeah, just something to be mindful of. And it's just an interesting fact to know. So I think we'll wrap that up. That's nearly 45 minutes, the longest one in a while. Like I said, I am not a gut health expert. I am just passing on the things that I know and the things that I understand and the things that I think are relevant to people. You do. I think the thing to leave you with is that just understand that this is still a new and emerging area. It is going to be for at least the next decade, probably the next 2 decades. Yes, we're going to learn a lot. Genuine science is going to come out of it. But during that learning period, there are going to be scumbags on social media who are going to want to sell you courses and supplements and lotions and potions to help you improve your gut health, to rebalance your microbiome, to rebalance your hormones. And the truth is they can't. Unless like without going into these programs and seeing what they're actually doing. For all I know, they could just, you could go into these things and all they're going to do is tell you to eat fruits and vegetables. They might not be telling you anything groundbreaking. They could just be trying to sell you the basics, but packaged up as whatever they sell it or however they are selling it. So just be very mindful of the information that you see on social media. Know that there is very little evidence to support most of the claims that you hear people talking about. And just take care around it. But hopefully that's given some practical steps that you can follow. Anyway, that's enough waffle from me today. Until next time.